I say we need to move on to the first game that Mickey is going to coach as our interim head coach, and that would be against a team that made sure he couldn't play again for the rest of his life, and that would be OU. So there you go, the Oklahoma preview. You threw some stats out there, so why don't you go ahead and preview this Oklahoma team for us?
All right, so this is going to be obviously the biggest game of the year. Arguably, I think Northwestern was the biggest game before OU, but OU really takes precedence over that. They're coming in with a decent amount of firepower. Did they have an overly impressive game against UTEP or Kent State? Maybe not particularly. But let's just look at the stats, some standout stats, or just general stats with a few standout stats in there. Comparative to Nebraska, let's just get this out of the way. Comparative to Nebraska, they've only played 2 games, whereas we've played 3, so we have a larger pool of stats. So it's a little bit askew, so I'll try and, bridge the gap between that. But one thing that can't be ignored is the fact that Dylan Gabriel, the starting quarterback for Oklahoma, has a 70.6% completion percentage, which is really high. Like, that is a really good completion percentage, with 529 total yards of passing, with around a 10.4 average, along a 58, which of course these are kind of synonymous with the wide receivers room, which I'll get into, but he's got 5 total touchdowns in the passing game. On the rushing side of things, they have 393 total rushing yards across 2 games and around a 5.3 average yards per carry. A long of 46, but that came from a wide receiver, I assume was probably some sort of,
end around or something.
End around.
Yep.
But out of the running back room, they got a 44-yard long, 5 touchdowns in the running room. Top back is obviously Eric Gray. Between 2 games, he had 173 yards with a 6.7 yards per carry average. Has no touchdowns, though, yet. But that's mostly askew because Marcus Major, which is their second back, has 92 yards, 7.7 yards per carry average with 3 touchdowns.
Okay.
Yeah, so I imagine that when they're in the red zone, I didn't look at the weight. I'm assuming Marcus is probably a little bit of a bigger back at that goal line set, most likely. At the receiving room, they have 529 total yards, as I stated before, with the quarterback. They have 5 touchdowns, or I guess I already did those stats. So same stats as the quarterback, 58-yard long, 5 touchdowns. Top wide receiver is obviously Marvin Mims. He looks good this year. Between 2 games, he's got 10 receptions for 244 yards. That means that it's a 24.4 yards average per reception with that 58-yard long and 2 touchdowns. So Marvin Mims is going to definitely be a troublesome character for our secondary.
I think he was last year too. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah, he was. Or maybe he was a non-factor. There was one guy out of their wide receiver room that we made a non-factor, which was kind of surprising. And I want to say it was Marvin Mims, or it was that other guy.
Yeah.
I don't remember who the other guy was. But speaking of others, we've got, I didn't obviously tell every single story of every single player because that would just be long-winded. But other guys we got to keep in mind is Theo Weiss, Drake Stoops, and Braden Willis. Those are the top 4 wide receivers on their chart. Drake Stoops obviously being relative. Is that the son of Mark or Bob Stoops? Is that the thing? Okay. Well, he's got a touchdown. Drake Stoops has got a touchdown. Between those 3 guys, Weiss, Stoops, and Willis,
something like that. Yep.
Yeah, some family, some relative of some sort. Between Weiss, Stoops, and Willis, they've got about 175, 180 yards between the 3 of them. So pretty sizable in their wide receiver room, which goes in tandem with the fact that Dylan Gabriel is a pretty good quarterback for them so far. Just
transfer from UCF, right?
Yes, transfer from UCF.
God, that's not weird.
Yeah, I know. That's a small world, I guess.
I'm pretty sure he was recruited by Frost before he left to come here. Pretty
Yeah,
sure.
I remember seeing that in
So,
the recruiting circles, but that pretty much covers the offense. Dad, is there anything out of all of these stats that concern you the most, and things that you feel like we might be able to have an advantage over, at if any at all, with our defense?
nope. Not based on what we saw last week. I mean,
No.
you got to figure OU's offensive line is better than what we saw from Georgia Southern. You've got to figure their quarterback is obviously better, and we have to figure in the quarterback run into the situation, because other than that last touchdown, Georgia Southern's quarterback didn't run the ball at all. Not at all. So, Dylan's going to run probably 8 to 10 times in this game. So that scares me, especially with the ability or non-ability to fill the gap for this defense. So
And it's gonna
the
really,
quarterback run scares the living shit out of me. And yeah, 393 total yards rushing in 2 games against 2 teams that aren't quite what Nebraska is, well, supposed to be, but maybe Nebraska's not all that good on defense. So yeah, I'm scared on all 3 sides of the defense. The line of scrimmage, the linebacker level, and the defensive backs. I'm worried.
I was gonna say
And
that I
maybe
think
moving
I
Shenander to where he's only going to be responsible for coordinating the defense and paying attention to the safeties is going to help with some of those run fits. But damn, we really miss Nick Henrik. I mean, he
yeah.
missed a lot of tackles against Northwestern, but we really miss him.
I
So I'm
I was
scared.
I was gonna say, I think you're onto something with that quarterback run thing, because as of right now, Dylan Gabriel has 10 attempts for 10 yards. And the reason why that scares me is because
They
if
didn't need
I
him to run.
if well, they don't need him to run. And if there's anything our defense has proven that they've been able to do, is that if there's something that they're not prepared to do, that's exactly what our opposing team is going to do. If we're looking at just those stats,
Yeah.
and I'm not a competent defensive coordinator, I would look at that and be like, non-factor, don't worry about the quarterback run. I doubt they would say something like that, but good God, like if that's a stat line that is non-existent in their first 2 games against UTEP and Kent State, for a fact it's going to be a stat line for Nebraska. I would not be surprised if Dylan Gabriel finishes the day with around 60 yards of rushing, and all of them being need to get 3rd down, need to get 4th down, some sort of key moment that we desperately need to stop, and we are not keyed up ready for a quarterback run. I think you're onto something there.
Could be. I hope I'm wrong. I really do. I hope I'm wrong, because we didn't expect Casey to run the ball for 7 times for 32 yards and 3 touchdowns.
No.
None of us expected that. And I think Dylan Gabriel is a way better runner than Casey is. He just didn't need to.
No.
He really didn't need to. Why run him if you don't need to? You're going to need to run him this week.
Yes.
But then again, maybe you don't. Just hand the damn ball off, and whoever's playing middle linebacker at Nebraska ain't going to be able to make the tackle anyway.
Yep.
I hate to be that guy, but at the same time, it's like, well, shit. Why not? Why not gap
he's
us?
healthy.
Why not make a safety make a decision, a linebacker figure out what damn gap they're supposed to fill? Because we still haven't figured that out for 3 games. So I don't know. That's what scares me. Quarterback run. And if that goes, everything else goes. Everything else goes. And Nebraska doesn't stay within 3 touchdowns of OU. So, God, I hate being that guy. But then again, Frost ain't pulling the levers this week. So you never know.